Hey there, spooky friends. Welcome to the Horror Ghouls podcast. We review horror movies in depth and have a chuckle or two. I'm Megan,
I'm T.
and we are taking you on a walking tour of Haddonfield, Illinois tonight. Why does that place sound familiar, you ask? Well, it's the home of horror icon Michael Myers. We started this podcast with the very last installment of Halloween being our very first episode. Halloween ends. What better way or what better time to take you back to the very beginning than spooky season, right? Halloween came out in 1978. It was written and directed by John Carpenter. The budget was only $325,000 and it
Crazy.
made 70 million at the box office. So saying it's like a smash understatement, right?
It did well.
It sure did. It sure did. So we're gonna get right into the movie. We start with our iconic Halloween intro music with the opening credits. The song is composed by legend John Carpenter. So not only did he write and direct it, he wrote the goddamn music too. He did
The whole
everything.
entire thing, the whole score is
He
all
was
him.
very
Yes.
busy man. So we start in, again, Haddonfield, Illinois, Halloween 1963. So we see kids are trick-or-treating. We see a cute white two-story home, one that many of us would become very familiar with. Much of the first scene is done as POV. We are getting a view of someone lurking about the house, looking in windows as if we are them, and we can't see the identity of this person yet. So a teen couple, Judith and David, are making out on the couch. They go upstairs. Our person goes around the back of the house and through an open door, which, why are you leaving your back door open? But whatever. So in the kitchen, this person grabs a large knife, and we see in the periphery what appears to be a child's hand or arm in a costume, which is creepily like a clown costume. So you know how I feel about that.
Hmm.
That's who's grabbing it. So we go through the house again in this POV and up the stairs. Well, while before we go up the stairs, David goes to leave and says he will call Judith tomorrow. So they were upstairs for all of about 2 minutes.
He was a minute man. Good
So
Lord.
yeah, he was like, bye. Like that was the end of that. Um, so he's like, I'll call you tomorrow, Judith. And she's like, promise. And he's like, okay.
Right.
So our entity, our POV person, goes upstairs after David exits. We see the arm slashed hand reach out again and grab a clown mask that had been laying on the floor. So literally my nightmare. And he puts this on his face. So now we're seeing this view that's semi-obscured because of this mask, which is cool. It's a cool kind of shot. So this person enters Judith's room. She is mostly naked and brushing her hair. She turns and yells out, Michael, before she is repeatedly stabbed. She falls to the floor, deceased. And Michael goes outside. He's standing on his front walk as his parents, I assume, walk up. And his face is glazed over. His eyes are just like kind of distant. Um, and he's holding in his hand a bloody knife. So this is the Myers family. This is how we are introduced to them. Um, from there, we fast forward to Smiths Grove, Illinois, October 30th, 1978. So in a rainy thunderstorm, Dr. Loomis and a nurse, Marion Chambers, which they never say her name, but that's her
Yep.
name, they're driving to Illinois State Hospital. The purpose of their trip is to transport Michael to a different county for a court hearing in a station wagon, which seems odd,
Not
right?
safe. Doesn't seem safe.
It doesn't seem like a safe choice, no. So they're having this conversation, like the nurse is making a comment about the only thing that bothers her about kind of her line of work is when she says, start raving on and on. And apparently she has this history with many patients where, she's dealing with people in the psych ward, and that's the one thing that freaks her out, I guess. So Loomis lets her know that Michael has not spoken one word in 15 years and to not underestimate it, he says. The nurse is like, "Do you mean him?" And Loomis is very dismissive of this. He's just like, hmm. Like he's not giving too much information, but he's giving enough. So they do talk about, how Michael is going to be medicated because before he goes in front of a judge. And Loomis decides on a very heavy drug that would leave Michael super incapacitated. So all of this essentially to say that Loomis thinks Michael is very, very dangerous.
That's
As they get,
true.
yeah, it's like he's not like giving the history, but he's just like, just, we're gonna see what happens. So they get closer to the hospital and they see that several patients are out wandering around. So that's alarming, kind of.
Right.
Um, Loomis has the nurse pull up to the main gate where he gets out, and I think he's using like a call box,
Yeah, to
right?
try to get in.
But we do see that the front gate is ajar.
Right.
So
So
I
I
wonder
don't,
why he was not the whole thing, just one side of it.
yeah, but still,
Um,
he could have just walked in.
yeah, yeah. Well, so someone, while he's doing this, Loomis is doing this, climbs on the roof of the car. For some reason, Nurse Chambers opens the window. She just like rolls down the window, like, and an arm grabs her head. So there's a struggle. Um, and Nurse Chambers breaks away and heads to the other side of the front seat, where a hand breaks the window. Um, and she's freaking out. She winds up letting herself out and kind of like crawling away on the ground. So this person gets in the car and drives away. This person is, of course, Michael Myers. Um,
Yes. Now
so
when
he's taken his that
the
station wagon
he's
away.
out.
He's out.
Yeah. I want to say some interesting things. One, interestingly enough, so Donald Pleasance, who plays Loomis,
Hmm.
he drank 2 bottles of wine before doing this scene. And
Why?
I don't know. He drank 2 bottles of wine and everybody was worried that he was going to be like sloshed. But he did a really good job, so you can't even tell that he was drunk during that scene. But that might be kind of why he's not giving a lot of information. Like he seems kind of like blasé. He's just like, I
That's
kept looking at his eyes because I'm like, he looks a little done.
that's really funny. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And also interesting, he's only in the movie for 18 minutes. He did all of his shooting in 5 days. So
Wow.
it seems like he's in the movie more, but it was only 5 days and 18 minutes. And also I was wondering like how strong does Michael have to be to break this window? But they used a wrench on his hand and colored it flesh colored so that when he hit the window it would crack. Because I was like,
Oh, that's
that's
smart.
crazy. Yeah. So, because I didn't like slow it down to see it, but I was like, oh, that's a really interesting fact,
So
So,
it's interesting. Over the last few days, I watched the beginning of this movie twice, so I actually did see that scene two times. And that's not something I just looked like a hand. Like,
yeah. Because you would think like it would be a fist like hitting the window,
yeah, but it's
but
an
it's an
open
open
palm.
palm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
He
that,
was bitch slapping that window.
right?
It's crazy. Wow. Uh, wow. Okay. So Michael has driven away in his new station wagon in a hideous brown. And we find ourselves back in Haddonfield on Halloween. There it is. There's the title, right? So it's a cute suburban town. We meet Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who we love. She's a high school student. She's walking to school. Her dad yells out for her to drop off a key at the Myers place because he's showing it later. He wants her to leave the key under a mat, and he is a realtor. So that's the purpose of that. As Laurie is walking to school, she runs into Tommy, that's a boy she babysits, and we find she's going to babysit him that night on Halloween. They're going to do the whole Halloween thing with pumpkin carving, monster movies, popcorn, all the essentials. So Tommy and Lori walk past the Myers house together. Tommy is frightened by the house, saying she's not supposed to go up there. Lori isn't afraid and leaves the key under the mat as instructed. And here we do see that there is someone inside. But the neighborhood is like well aware of this Michael Myers lore. Like it's like I don't know, like, was there ever a weird house in your neighborhood growing up where people like, don't go by that house, like an abandoned, like weird house? No.
Mm, I think it was more like, don't go by that house because there are people doing illegal activities in there. So not so much like haunted or abandoned, but yeah.
Haunted in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually had one at the end of my block because I used to walk to elementary school. It was very short, like my house is at the end of the street. And at the end of the street, there was an old, not like super Victorian, but Victorian-esque house that was like super bushy and like had some boards on the windows, and we had to pass it every day. So everyone was like, "Ooh, that house is spooky." And I'd probably love that house today as an adult, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it's that kind of neighborhood lore, right, about this place. So Michael, who is in the house, is watching Lori depart and is boldly just standing out in the street. He's not hiding at this point. So this is the first time we're seeing him after he's escaped, essentially.
He
And
already found his trash man outfit.
he did. He found his jumpsuit. And when we see him, the first few times we see him now, it's like from the shoulder down, right? So we're just kind of getting a little bit of a silhouette, but not his head. We do get some heavy breathing, though. He's a very loud, I would say he's probably a mouth breather,
I would
right?
say so.
Right. So Loomis is leaving Illinois State Hospital having a heated exchange with what I imagine is like the head of the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Loomis is telling him to get on the phone and warn everybody about Michael and where he's going. He's going to Haddonfield. That's what Loomis is sure of. But this guy is like, meh, he might be going there. You don't really know what's happening. Especially because Haddonfield is 150 miles away and Michael can't even drive. And Loomis is like, well, he was doing pretty good last night. So,
Which is so funny because people
yeah.
were upset about that. Like that was the actual like point of contention when
Really?
people were reviewing the movie. They were like, if he was away for 16 years or 15 years, because it's 15 years between the time.
Right.
So how did he learn to drive? And somebody else countered it. I think I forget who it was, but somebody else countered it and said he rode with Loomis many times back and forth through the years. And even though that station wagon does have a gate so the person in the back can't get through,
It does. Yeah.
he could have been watching him from the back seat the whole entire time. So he
Right.
could get the mechanics of, because back then we're assuming this is a top gear shift and not the one where we do
Y-
it now.
Right.
So he's watching him put it down into shift, drive. He knows he got to put his foot on the pedal, so
Well,
that's
like,
how they explained it.
so we know. So Michael went away when he was a kid. How old was he about? Like,
He was 6 when he went away and 23 when he came back. I don't know the actual if that actually adds up to me,
we're
but
not, we're suspending our disbelief. It's fine.
yeah.
But it's like, even as a kid, like, from being in the car, like with your parents or whatever, like, you wouldn't necessarily be a good driver, but there's only two pedals, right? There's only two. And then you'd go like this. Like, there's not that much to it. He
Unless there's a
does
stick shift, then there's a
that.
clutch.
Well, then there's a problem, but he does speed away though. So I get that that's weird, but
Yeah.
it's just, just we're gonna leave that. We get it. So at school, um, while a very boring teacher, might I add, is droning on, I would be so asleep in that class. What was it, like an English class, I think
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, but she was saying something interesting. Go ahead. I'll tell you what she said
Okay.
afterwards.
So Lori, who is sitting close to the window, looks outside and sees an old station wagon. Weird, right? The teacher calls on her and asks her a question, which she answers, whatever. And then she looks back outside and she sees the station wagon is gone. Lori does answer very intelligently, but just before you say whatever the teacher was saying, it was her delivery that was so boring
Oh
that
yeah.
even the best content can be ruined by someone who can't, you know, articulate it nicely, I'll say. So what was happening there?
By the way, did you notice that Michael is in that scene?
I did.
Okay,
He
yeah, because
did.
he's
Yeah.
he's standing behind the station wagon.
Yeah, he was
So
like, "What's up?" And she
right
was like, "What? What's
with the
happening?"
mask on, which is why I was thrown off. Like, when did he get the mask? Because did he break into the hardware store then? So anyway,
Surprise, surprise.
right.
Yep.
So the teacher is actually talking. It's a book about fate, and she literally says, and I'm kind of actually not literally because I kind of changed the words around, but this is the gist. Fate caught up with several lives. No matter what course of action taken, we're destined to our own fate, our day of reckoning with ourself. Fate never changes, which is interesting if you at some point understand the story between Laurie and Michael, because, she, well, if you're watching this and if you know we did Halloween Ends, then you know that they're related. Okay. So we're not going to hide that fact. But at this point, Laurie was in a closed adoption, which is why her last name is Strode. And so fate is basically saying eventually you're getting back to the Myers family. Like, this
Right.
is how you're coming back, which I don't, allegedly, like they said, oh, he just decided to stalk her. Like, he didn't necessarily know that was his sister, so he just
Right.
decided to stalk her. So I'm like, that's interesting that you chose your sister of all people to stalk.
Yeah.
So,
But
but yeah,
honestly, even the way that you delivered that, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's a good point. It's just the teacher just
the teacher was
killed it for
horrible.
me. Yeah. But that's interesting, even just outside of the movie for life, right?
Yeah.
That's a fun thing to know. Um, but that's a good point. So, then we flash over to Tommy's school. He's getting bullied by some dumb kids, and he's holding a massive pumpkin, like
Right.
huge. So eventually he kind of falls over and lands on it and he smushes it, which is sad, while the other kids they just like run away. But they're teasing him about like the boogeyman's gonna get you, blah blah blah. And he's so impressionable at this age. So he's like actually concerned about the boogeyman. And it is Halloween, so that's, a scary, spooky time. So Michael also makes an appearance here. Again, he's out the car, like he's just he's walking the streets and he watches as Tommy moves through the schoolyard. What's funny is right before that happens, when one of the kids runs out who is bullying him, Michael like grabs him by the shoulders. And that's one of the moments where you like want something to happen to them because they're being shitty. And I was like, oh, like shake him or something, and he just let him go. So he's like, you're not on the list today, son. That's fine. Um, so same thing here. We're not seeing his face or like anything above the shoulders. We're just seeing kind of like his back and his side and his like mechanic coveralls or whatever is happening. Um, the reoccurrence of John Carpenter's Halloween song is also present in this part, and it's really good at building tension throughout the movie, like the whole
Hmm.
score, because it's not much of it is redundant, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
but it's really good. It's scary. It's one of those movies like when I was watching it that like even the music alone when I was like little would just strike fear into me, much like the Unsolved Mysteries
I
theme song
love, yes.
and
That
Robert
is
Stack's
so
voice.
scary. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's one of those things that even though you've heard it a million times, it's still like when it hits, it's like, oh. Um, so Michael hops back in his station wagon and he follows Tommy. He actually pulls up right next to him and slows all the way down. And I thought this was funny because Tommy was just like, doo, doo, doo. Like he's right next to you in the car, and Tommy doesn't notice. But
Not
then
at all.
Michael drives away. So at the 73 mile to Haddonfield marker, Loomis has pulled over and is talking to the police on a payphone. If you guys remember what those are. He's letting them know that Michael is already on his way and he should know like what he's doing. He's like, trust me, I was his doctor, whatever. So Loomis, after he hangs up, sees an abandoned truck nearby for Phelps' garage. He finds some debris on the ground, noting that there's a matchbook for like what was it, the Red Rabbit Lounge or something like that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
where he got the damn outfit.
that's where he got the outfit. Um, and also, which interesting to note, but I'm not sure how this connects anything. But the matchbook that he finds for Phelps' garage is the same one he found that Marion Chambers had in the station wagon. So,
Oh,
right, but it doesn't seem relevant to anything else in the movie. So he picks it
no.
up and he seems to like ponder it because they made a note before when he was in the station wagon with Marion of him noticing like they zoomed in on the matchbook. So he looks at it and he's like, "Oh," and he like runs back to his car. But we never see or hear about the Red Rabbit Lounge again.
Oh, you know what? I know what they did there. I get it.
What?
So because it was in the station wagon,
Mm.
he's tracing the steps. He's like, Michael was here because the matchbook is there, and so now
Okay.
the matchbook he finds it there. So now he's running off like, oh, he's taking
But
this.
like
you know.
Why did he bring it with him? Is he like smoking like Marlboro Lights? Like why does he,
Why did
you
who,
know?
Loomis? I
No,
guess,
like if we're saying Michael, because Michael is in the station wagon. Because first,
right.
the way I interpreted this first was that they just happened to be at the same place, right? And they both had a matchbook for this lounge, right? But then if it's not that, and it's simply because Michael inherited the ones from the station wagon,
Yeah.
is he just like, I'm gonna have a camel now? Like I
This
don't
is
understand how it wound up on the ground, you know?
this is just one of those things that it's the only way they can say Michael was here, which is
I
why
got
they
it.
made that connection. Because you're right. When I first looked at it, I wasn't paying any attention to that until I just made the connection that he
Right.
stole that man's outfit,
Yes.
and then we had that. So maybe he picked up the matches while he was driving, put it in like a pocket or something in his like insane asylum outfit,
Do they have
and then when he
pockets? They come with pockets now?
I mean, I think they might have maybe they had pants pockets. Maybe he had it up here. Maybe he was just playing with it as he was driving. I don't know.
Just lighting them
Yeah,
crazily
just
as he
striking
went.
one by one.
Yep.
But then when he got out and he was like tussling with this man who is dead off to the side, Loomis just
He
didn't go
is.
far enough.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe when he was tussling with him, it just dropped, and then he said,
It's
"Oh,
it's definitely possible. Yeah.
yeah,
So that's the thing is Loomis, he runs back to his station wagon, right? But we see because the camera moves up and in the foreground to the front, to the side, we see that the person from Phelps' garage is deceased in the bushes. And he has some weird blood markings on him. Like it almost looked like someone took a big bristled paintbrush and just like did red on his on his chest, which is bare because Michael stole his coveralls.
yeah,"
Um,
which I just discovered.
yeah,
I
yes.
just realized I'm so dumb.
He's so no, that's quite all right. But I thought the paint thing was funny. Like they could have made like little like blood marks, but they're just like, this is good. Like it's fine. Um, So at Lori's high school, her and her friend, Linda, are talking about cheers. Linda has to learn. Linda's very like preppy. She has to learn cheers for the big game and her boyfriend and all this stuff. And Lori's like, well, I don't have any plans, for Halloween or ever because they keep trying to make this big thing about she's kind of like, she has no social life. Like she has her friends, but they do kind of make a big thing of it. So they're walking home. Their friend Annie catches up and seems to be in a bad mood because her boyfriend is grounded for pulling pranks.
Hmm.
The three girls, while they're walking, take notice of the station wagon going by and the man in the coveralls. Um, and the girls just continue on their walk. Annie and Linda are supposed to hang out later that night while Annie babysits. And Lori is babysitting, she says, 3 houses away. So they talk about keeping each other company. Linda then reaches her house, so she kind of leaves the group. Looking ahead, Lori sees a man wearing a weird pale mask, which may or may not look like William Shatner. Fun fact. Um, and might be on your shirt at this
It
very
might
moment.
be.
Might be. And he's half standing out from behind a big hedge. Lori calls Annie's attention to it. By the time Annie looks, though, there's no one there. So
Yeah.
mysterious. So Lori, while she's kind of pondering this, runs into Mr. Brackett. That's Annie's dad, by the way. And it scares the crap out of her. But everything's fine. So everyone's gone on their separate ways at this point. So Annie's home, Lori's walking home. Lori goes into her house and, before she does, she observes some trick-or-treaters and she's like, oh, that's cute, like whatever. She goes up to her room and notices an open window fluttering curtains.
Mm.
And she goes to shut it. And then there again is this person staring up at her from, I thought it was her backyard clothesline, but it's actually the neighbors.
Okay, yeah.
It's the neighbors. So someone is like standing in between all the hanging laundry and just staring. And when I say someone, I mean Michael Myers is staring at her, but she doesn't know this yet. So then the phone rings, but nobody's there. She hangs up and the phone rings again, but it's Annie. And it was Annie the first time too, but she was
It's just
busy
chewing.
eating a snack or something. So Annie lets Lori know she'll pick her up at 6:30. Annie then picks up Lori at 6:30. She's waiting on the corner. She has a little pumpkin and stuff for Tommy and offers her a little smoke, a little illegal,
Little doobie.
a little bit, before they babysit, which is, that's definitely how you want to babysit.
Right.
Um, Loomis, at the same time, and a caretaker head to the cemetery to look at Judith Meyer's grave. We see when we get there that her headstone is completely missing and looks to have been removed recently. Loomis is now obviously absolutely certain that Michael is back in Haddonfield. So, back with Lori and Annie, as they drive, they are followed by the station wagon, which they're not really noticing. Um, and they run into, or they see rather, Annie's dad, Sheriff Beckett, at a crime scene, ditch their drugs. Um, they pull up on him and find out that someone broke into the hardware store, and
Right.
all they took was a mask, rope, and I thought they said knives, but maybe it was just one knife. I don't know.
He did
But
say knives. He said plural.
I thought he said knives.
Yeah.
Um, but like what? I've never been to a hardware store where there's masks. Like,
Right. Well,
mm,
I mean, it to me it would be like what kind of mask because they didn't specify. And hardware stores do have like masks where you can put it over
yeah,
your mouth and
yeah,
like
of
your spray
course.
stuff. So in my mind, or even when they're talking about this, oh, they stole masks. It still sounds normal, even though we know that's not normal.
Right. No, I know. I meant like they readily stocking like a bunch of Halloween masks. Like, don't forget to go to the Halloween mall. Like, it's weird.
But
Um,
like also they don't have knives. Like that's the thing that sorry. I mean
that's all right.
I am mean to drop an F-bomb this early, but like that's what really messed me up because it's like hardware stores don't sell butcher knives.
No, that would be the
So
kitchen store.
right, you
Yeah.
have to go to Kitchen Capers or
Kitchen
Williams
capers.
Sonoma. One of those places for that.
Oh my God. Is that a real store?
It is.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Oh wow. Okay. Kitchen capers. I'll have to put that back in my memory. The other funny thing to me about this scene, so when they roll up and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna talk to my dad, right?" And they ditch their weed and whatever. But their windows were all
We're
the way
all the
up,
way up.
and then they get to him and they roll down the window. Would have been like, "Oh, like, what are you guys
Right.
doing?" Like,
I immediately thought, oh, they're gonna get in trouble. And he's all normal and they're like, hi.
but it's
And
crazy too because he had his head like
in
he
the
leaned over. He was like, "Hey, girls, how you doing today?" Like, that was crazy.
they had to been smoking water for all that. So
Yeah, no, I just thought that was just a funny
it
observation that I
is.
had. So, after that scene, so Michael, he did hang back when they were talking to Annie's dad, but then he continues to tail Annie and Lori to the houses they're babysitting at, which are diagonally across from each other. He goes and stands by a tree at the house Annie is at as she goes in and the parents come out. So he's observing that. So Loomis had spoken earlier with the sheriff, like he showed up at that crime scene, the robbery. Um, and they kind of are working together now. They go to the Myers house, and the sheriff told Loomis that everyone in town thought the place was haunted. Loomis ominously tells him they might be right. So they enter the house and they find a dead animal on the ground that was still warm. Barf. Um, Loomis is like, he got hungry, and they're like, it's a dog, and maybe it's whatever. And the sheriff was like, a man wouldn't do that. And Loomis is like, well, we're not dealing with a man. So, so they go upstairs and they look around, noting the room where Judith met her end. Just then, a loose gutter comes down and breaks the window. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I've seen this movie a bunch, but it spooked me. It did. It made me scream a little bit. That was like, ah, because also I'm noting at the same time, and I was like, oh my gosh.
It didn't
Um,
get me, but what made me laugh was the fact that it happened and Loomis pulls out a little gun. And I was like, this
what
is
are
so
you gonna do with that?
it's
Yeah.
so cute. He has this little gun, like he's like, I'm ready to go. I'm
Yeah.
ready to shoot. It's like Loomis,
Are
you better.
let me ask you a question with that in mind, because I feel like you are more like calm like than me. Are you like a person that jump scares get you in general?
Not always. It
Okay.
depends. Like something like this, I think I only jumped one time and it was later.
Okay.
But like typically I'm kind of always looking or expecting it.
Okay.
So while it might get me a little bit, it's not like I'm like, oh, like I never
Yeah.
like
I'm
jump
like,
back and stuff.
I'm a big one like that, where it's like, even when I know or like I've seen it before, sometimes it just, if I'm not like 100% paying attention, like I said, I was noting it that I like will scream. But it's funny to
Yeah.
me. I think I said this before, but once I went to see some movie with my mom, and my sister and I kept like jumping and being like, "Ee!" And my mom just sat there like stony faced the whole time. And I was like, wow, like I was impressed. Like it was impressive to me that I was like, well, look at you. I
Yeah.
want to take you to more horror movies. Like,
At the most for me, I'm like, oh shit. But I'm not gonna like scream or I will do this. I'm a cover my face type person. So I'll cover my face while I'm looking at something because I'm like, oh my
yeah,
God. But yeah.
I do like the hair curtain. Like I do this a similar thing, but like this. And I know it's annoying if you're listening audio like that, you don't know what I'm talking about, but just imagine me covering my face with my hair. Um, or like I'll look at the screen like with like sideways so I can't get the whole picture. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Because I know something's gonna,
I
yeah,
squint.
like I look like that.
I will squint
Or
so
like,
that I
yeah,
don't see it clearly. Yeah.
like the, I get
And
that.
cover your hand, cover your
I
eyes.
definitely get that. So we start to hear about Loomis's history with Michael. He met him 15 years ago, and he said he was told there was nothing left, no conscience, no like sense of like life or death, right and wrong, nothing like that. And he goes on to say that he met an emotionless 6-year-old child who had black eyes, the devil's eyes. So he's a little dramatic. But he's really trying to get his point across. He said he kept working with him to try to reach him, and there came a point where he just tried to make sure he stayed locked up because the conclusion that he reached was simply that this child was evil. Loomis believes Michael will return to the house that night, and he says he will wait for him. The sheriff wants to call and help, but Loomis just tells him to let his officers in on it and to keep their eyes open and their mouths shut. Because he doesn't want everyone like all up in the streets, like kind of like spooking Michael. Like he wants to catch him again. He doesn't want him to keep running. So Lori, back at the Tommy house, is reading a story to him that just is boring the crap out of him. He shows her some monster comics and asks her about the boogeyman. Annie, at this moment, calls Lori and is interrupted by the family dog, Lester, who is very upset about something and is barking nonstop. So Annie is calling out to Lindsay, that's the girl she's babysitting, to come get the dog. Michael is outside, and that is the presence that the dog is detecting. So when Michael moves away, the dog actually stops barking. So Annie and Lori are talking more about boy stuff, like the homecoming dance, like who's cute. Just it's not super important, but
Not at all.
it's not important. Yeah. So Tommy looks out the window of his house and he sees Michael standing across the street at the other house. That's where Annie is at. And he tries to show Lori, but when she looks, he is gone. So we see that Michael has moved to the side door and is watching Annie on the phone. Annie has messed up her clothes with like butter from
Yeah.
popcorn, like because they used to make it on the stove, right? That's what they
Yep.
were doing. Okay. So for some reason, she fully undresses in the kitchen of almost strangers, and she grabs, I think, like the dad's shirt.
Yeah, it was very odd. I was like, oh no. She's screaming to Lindsay, who she's babysitting, for a robe. She's like, Lindsay, I need a robe. As she's
Yeah.
taking out the dad's shirt from somewhere, putting it on with her underwear. Like, there's no way in hell that her pants got butter all over it. Her shirt,
No,
maybe, but not her pants. You didn't have that was a gratuitous panty shot.
but like almost like, but even if you get some butter on you, like how bad is it that you're ripping your whole shirt off and like someone else's hat like that in the
Well,
kitchen too? Like you're not even going to the
yeah.
bathroom to change. Like it's just, I don't know, it was weird.
Maybe because her boyfriend was supposed to like she thought she might see him, or maybe she thought she was gonna do
Well, still, you're
something
gonna
or
go walk
whatever.
around the house with this little girl just wearing like this her dad's oversized shirt. Like it's very weird.
Yeah.
That's very strange. So Michael accidentally, I think, knocks over a hanging potted plant at this moment, and that kind of catches Annie's attention. Like I don't think he meant to hit it.
I couldn't tell. I thought he did it on purpose. And at this
Okay.
point, I was kind of noting. So I thought he just like purposely like pulled it down or broke it. But I could be wrong too. I wasn't paying
Yeah.
attention.
So bottom line is we're really not sure what his what Michael Myers' intention was with the plant.
No.
But the end result is the same. It did kind of get Annie's attention. So Michael is still lurking outside. Lester has been let outside and walks right up to Michael barking, but Michael sadly ends Lester. And I hate it, but that's
Well,
what happens. Yes.
interesting about that scene because, if you've listened to us, we talked about a previous scene where animals were hurt and whatnot, or an animal was hurt. But in this one, for that scene, the animal handler is holding the dog and literally just lets the dog go. But they shoot it in slow motion so it dies. So
Okay.
that's how they shot that scene. The dog was not hurt. The person standing there in the Michael outfit was the dog handler. And he's just holding the dog up in the air and literally just lets him go really quickly, but it's slow motion, so you can't
Okay.
tell.
That makes me feel better about it.
Yeah.
I feel better. Um, so Tommy and Lori are watching The Thing on TV. Tommy asks again about the boogeyman, and Lori says there's no such thing. It's Halloween time. People play tricks on each other, and Lori will keep him safe anyway, blah, blah. So again, I noted Annie, who is wearing a shirt of Lindsay's dad's, we don't know why, walks through the yard with her dirty clothes to put them in the wash, which appears to be, I think, in like the garage. Like
It's
what
like a
it,
shed or something.
yeah. And also, like, how inconvenient to anytime you want to do laundry.
Yeah,
Like,
like don't spill anything on yourself and not have a dad shirt around because then you're walking outside naked.
yeah, or like, what if it's raining or snowing or like whatever, but whatever. So she tries to turn the lights on, but there's no power. The door swings shut behind her, and we see Michael faintly behind the door through the glass as the door swings partially open again, right? So he disappears, and Annie goes about her laundry business. The door swings shut again because very breezy, I guess, this night. But this time it jams, so Annie can't open the door. Lindsay inside is mesmerized by the TV and does not know anything that's going on, even though Annie is like screaming for her.
Right.
She's just like in the TV. Um, the only thing that snaps Lindsay out of her kind of like stupor is that the phone rings. This is the second time because the first time it just went over her head. So it's ringing. Um, and then we see back at this like shed or whatever it is. Michael appears and disappears through the window. He's
Hmm.
very spooky. Um, and Annie goes to the same window he just appeared at to try to get out. So Annie, because she's a silly goose, she gets stuck in the window, and Lindsay has come out to try to get her because her boyfriend has called. So thankfully, Annie's boyfriend, has called at this point, which brought Lindsay outside. So while Lindsay helps Annie get unstuck, the phone rings again and they run back inside for it, and Annie picks it up this time. Also, they have left the back door just open for some reason.
Not only that, but I thought Lindsay left the phone off the hook. So
Did she?
I couldn't
Oh, yes,
tell.
yes. Yeah, so
Yeah,
what
so it's
happened was she put it down. That must be a goof. She put it
mhm.
down to run outside to get Annie, and then the phone rings again,
Right.
but that doesn't make any sense. That's a
Yeah.
good catch. Good catch. Um Yeah, so they left the back door open, and Michael just is standing right outside. He's funny because sometimes he is lurking, but other times he's just right there, and people are just kind of in their own ish and don't notice him,
Yeah,
which is
which is
like,
odd.
yeah, well, it's whatever. So Annie is talking to her boyfriend on the phone. He says he found a way to sneak out, even though he was grounded. And Annie finally agrees to go pick him up, but Lindsay doesn't want to go. So she brings Lindsay over to Tommy's house so Lori can keep an eye on both the kids. So Michael sees this. Again, he's been waiting, lurking around in the street because he loves to lurk. He's a big lurker. So Annie convinces Lori to watch both kids. There was some more exchange about boy stuff, but it doesn't matter to the story, so I'm not going to tell you about it. And she goes on her way to get Paul. So Annie goes to get in her car, but the door is locked. So she has to go back in the house and get her keys. When she goes back outside with her keys, somehow, magically, her car is unlocked and she notices steam on the windshield. Like she notices this. She's like drawing in the steam, like, that's weird. Michael, who's been sitting in the back seat, grabs Annie and chokes her out and then slashes her in the neck, where she dies an overacted cross-eyed death. Like it's very overacted.
It is.
But it was the 70s, a simpler time.
This was
Um,
better than the first death because I didn't say anything when Judith got killed, but that was the most horrible acting for a death I think I've seen in quite a long time.
yeah,
Uh yeah,
yeah.
it
I
was
get
bad. She was like, "Oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh,
she didn't try to write
oh."
back or anything. That's one of the
No,
things with 70s horror is that you do hear a lot of like shrieking or moaning that sounds like that when people are meeting their end.
like a little later.
Right. So so we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
So Tommy and Lindsay are still watching a movie, and Tommy sneaks away to hide behind the curtain and try to scare Lindsay. But at this moment, he also happens to see Michael carrying Annie's lifeless body back into the house across the street. Tommy screams about the boogeyman, freaking out Lindsay, and Lori tells him to cut it out or he has to go to bed. So this part made me laugh. So back at the Myers, Loomis is now hiding in the bushes waiting for Michael because there's a lot of people hiding in bushes in this movie. So one of the kids from town goes up to the porch and Loomis from the bushes goes like, "Hey, get your ass away from there," which made me laugh. And he's pleased with himself too after. Like he has like this moment where he smiles and the kids run away. But just then there's a hand on his shoulder. It's Sheriff Beckett, but I'll tell you, like I said it before, this movie still has the ability to spook me like it does because the hand landing and I was like, oh, it's just the sheriff. It's okay. Um, but that was funny. I loved how like his smile when he was just like having
He
fun
was
about
very
like
happy.
teasing the kids. I
He's like, haha, I got you.
know. He's like, I gotcha, you little troll. So Loomis is reminding the sheriff how dangerous the situation is that they are in. And the sheriff is like, that's all fancy talk. Like, like, okay. So the sheriff doesn't really believe him, but he's like, I will keep an eye out, like, just in case you're right. So Loomis then returns to his bush lurking, and the sheriff goes on his way. So I think it's funny too because Loomis is not even really doing anything to conceal himself. He's just like hanging out behind this
Right.
bush, wearing a trench coat, like his hands are in his pockets. Like he's not
As if the person he had been watching for the past 15 years and monitoring and, psychoanalyzing wouldn't know who he was.
like not even any kind of disguise or like like I don't know. I think it's funny. So Linda, now remember Linda from before, and her boyfriend Bob pull up to the house that Annie is babysitting Lindsay at. But we know that Annie is no more. They're drinking beer in his van, talking about their plan when they get inside and they get some alone time. Like, we're gonna get like a signal and like this whole thing. So they go in the house, they're laughing, they're having a great time, but the house is dark when they enter. Linda calls out to Annie and there's no reply. They turn on some lights and nothing seems weird, so Linda and Bob commence getting down on the couch. Michael is watching from the hallway because he is a voyeur and weird. So,
Which they deserve. Because what have we talked about before about breaking into people's homes, going into people's
right.
housings. They didn't break in, no, but this is this house is twice removed. The person
Yes.
that's supposed to be babysitting is well, they're there, but they aren't there. And this is not your home either.
Well, like
So,
also exactly, but like what you're saying, so what if the people babysitting, like what if they canceled and the parents were still home and like you just
right.
walk into their like that's crazy.
Right. What if you walk in the house and they're, on the couch
Right.
doing the do?
On their couch, which they're
Right.
allowed to do that. It's very silly. So across the street, Lori, Lindsay, and Tommy have carved a pumpkin, very fun, and keep making boogeyman references, whatever. So Lori takes a look out the window and sees the van parked outside across the street, having no reason to believe anything other than her friends are having a good time, all her friends, right? And she's stuck with the kids. So the three of them sit down on the couch to watch the rest of their movie, and the phone rings. Linda finally does something smart and calls to ask about Annie because she's not over there. Lori is not bothered by this and believes that Annie and Paul just stopped off somewhere, tells Linda to have her call her when she gets in so she knows what to do with Lindsay. Like, when do I put
Right.
her to bed? Whatever. So Linda and Bob, realizing Lindsay won't be home all night, go upstairs to violate the cardinal rules of horror movies, right? It's like, don't separate yourself
Yeah.
from the group. Do not fornicate ever. You don't do it. Bad things will
No.
happen to you. So,
Especially in somebody else's house.
especially, yeah, that we're going to add that to the horror rules. Don't just
Yeah.
walk into anyone's house ever. So the phone rings, interrupting them, and Linda doesn't want to answer it in case it's like Lindsay's parents. She gets Annie in trouble. So they wind up taking the phone off the hook, which,
Which,
because we know what's going to happen, this is
right.
silly, silly choice. Um, they go back to their activities, and Michael's shadow is seen on the wall. So after 2 minutes or 1 minute, Bob goes downstairs for a drink and leaves all the lights off.
Everybody's a Minuteman in this movie.
Everybody.
Everybody but Michael.
Everybody but Michael, yes. So again, walking through people's houses with the lights off, like this, that's a big thing in this movie too. That's weird, like to me, but whatever. So he hears the back door open and calls out for Annie and Paul. There's no reply, and he looks in the closet thinking his friends are tricking him. There's nothing there. But when he opens the door, which might be another closet on the other side, not
It
sure what
seems
it
like a
is.
pantry or something.
Yeah. Oh, we know about people hiding in the pantry, Friday the 13th. When
Mm.
he opens the other door, Michael charges him, choking him, and doing what we now know is the classic Michael move of raising him up the wall one-handed. He also stabs Bob in the stomach, pinning him to the wall that was behind him. So he just stuck up there. So Michael can take his hands and he just stays, which is does not seem realistic, but
Not at all.
it's still very spooky. So Michael stops and just kind of admires his work when he's done with that. He's like, this is nice. He decides to take his show on the road and go upstairs and appears in the doorway to Linda as a sheet ghost with Bob's glasses over the eyes. Linda thinks Bob is teasing her, but he just continues to stand in the doorway. She starts getting annoyed. She's like, "Where's my beer?" Also, she's kind of annoying. She's like, "Did you get my beer? Well, did you get
Yeah.
my beer? Like, why aren't you answering me? What's wrong with you?" So she finally, after lobbing several questions at him, is just like, "Whatever, you're weird." And she picks up the phone to call Lori. While her back is turned, he advances on her. So Lori picks up the phone just as Michael starts choking Linda with the phone cord. And she does sound like you're saying, she sounds like she's engaging in some scandalous activities. It's not normal like death
No.
sounds. It's just
She's
weird.
like,
Like,
oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh, oh,
It's
oh. And I'm trying to not do it more than that so that this doesn't sound
it
like that.
it goes on
But
for too long as well. So
yeah,
yeah, and all that's happening is she's getting choked out. So Lori is like, haha, very funny, Annie. She thinks she's being pranked. Lori, though, becomes concerned, though, when there's no answer, when she's like, okay, stop, like, enough, what's happening? Um, and there's just gasping and heavy breathing. So it does get quiet on the line. Lori hangs up the phone, and on the other end, Michael has ended the life of Linda. So Lori, after hanging up, calls the house again, and there's no answer. She goes upstairs in the house she is in and she checks on the kids who are sleeping. Loomis, still at Michael's house, still in the bushes, seems to be getting a little bored. He looks down the street and sees the abandoned station wagon, and he runs up to it and he's looking around the street. Seeing nothing, he continues walking. So he's taking a break from his bush lurking. So at this time, Lori is making her way downstairs and goes in her bag for some keys. She slowly, very slowly, crosses the street. This is kind of an extended sequence that didn't really need to be there, but her slow advancement on the house and the scoring is very creepy. So this is doing a good job of building the tension, unlike the coffee scene in Friday the 13th. So this,
right.
even though it is a little extended, it is serving a purpose that makes sense. So we know that she's going up to this house. We know that Michael is there, but she doesn't know what she's walking into. She knocks on the front door and there's no reply. So then she walks around the side. She's like peering into the windows and she finds the back door open. And we know that Bob was just knifed to the wall right there, just a few minutes seemingly before, pretty much,
Yeah, at
but he
least.
is no longer there. So Michael has done a cleanup job as well. So Lori keeps calling out for her friends as she slowly makes her way through the house. She's standing in the living room telling her friends to cut the crap. Again, no reply. She makes her way up the stairs. Now, again, I don't know why she hasn't turned on any goddamn lights, and everyone is insisting on walking through these dark houses.
Yeah,
Very,
because
very silly.
even at one point, before Laurie goes over there, Michael turns on the lights because he needs to see what he's doing to set up whatever he's going to set up.
But
So
like,
he turns on the lights because he needs to see.
why is everyone insisting on walking around like they're already nervous, like something weird's happening, and they're like, let's make it even scarier by doing this all in the dark, right? Like,
Right.
why are we doing that? So, when she gets up to the top of the stairs, there's a light coming through the door at the end of the hall, so that's naturally where she goes. When she opens it and she slowly walks into the room, she finds Annie
Mhm.
laid out on the bed. This is where Linda had just been before, right? She's laid out up on her back. And the Judith Myers headstone, which looks much larger than it looked probably in the cemetery.
Yeah.
It's very big. It's leaning against the headboard, which also the amount of strength required to haul that up there. And
Right.
also, was he dragging that around? Like at what point, like Tommy
Right.
was looking out the window and he was like lugging it, like, like, my back. I have sciatica now, like something. So shocked, she backs up and leans against, I believe, maybe a closet door frame, but or
Yeah.
just a door frame. And that's when Bob, who's been hung upside down, swings forward, deceased, of course. That sends her screaming to the other side of the room, and a cabinet door opens, and that's where we see Linda has been stuffed inside. Michael's very neat though, so that's nice. He's keeping everything in one room, organized.
Yes.
Um, so Lori then runs screaming from the room and is trying to, I guess, collect herself. So she's leaning on different walls for support. She's like, like moving from wall to wall, kind of. And she winds up on one that is next to a black doorway, which we all know is silly. It's silly. Michael appears and swipes at her as she steps away, getting the arm of her shirt with his knife. So she has a little bit of a slice, but really mainly he has just kind of ripped the fabric. She falls down the stairs. Michael advances. The
Which
music they're using though in this scene is perfect.
the music is really good there. I swore she fell over a banister.
I think
Like,
she did too.
yeah, and I was like, oh, she about to fall to her doom.
Yeah. And then she did kind of just like the
Collapse,
tumble
yeah.
down the rest of the stairs. Um,
But yeah, the music is great there.
it's really good because they change it from like the regular Michael Myers to like dun it, dun it. Like it's really good. So Lori limps through the house, having hurt herself when she fell. She tries to get out the back door, but it has been blocked. Like Michael has put, I think, like a rake or something against the
Yeah.
doors. Which also, how did he do that so fast? Because that's where she came in. So she did lock the kitchen door, like the internal kitchen door, before she came in. But Michael does a Jack Torrance from The Shining and busts through the door so he can open it from the other side, like he can unlock it. So Lori has smartly broken the glass outside door and let herself outside. And she's out in the night running through the street and screaming for help. She does a little bit of the stereotypical horror movie run, but doesn't look behind her too much.
No,
So I'm
she just
glad.
hits the ground, but
Just one time, though.
right.
So she's doing good. She gets to the neighbor's house and their lights go on and she's screaming help. And one of the neighbors looks at her, but then just turns off the lights and is like, that's a you
Closes the
problem.
blinds on top of that, like right in her
And she's a
face.
young girl too. Like, just see what she needs at least. So she runs back to Tommy's house and tries to get in, but she can't find the keys. And she's screaming for Tommy to let her in. So she turns and she sees Michael coming from across the street. She does manage to wake Tommy up by throwing a potted plant at his window. So he lets her in just in time, and she tells Tommy to go upstairs. Um, and then she hits the lights, which again is silly because he already saw her go in the house. But we just think that she likes to have the lights off at this point. I don't know. I
Well,
don't know
I
why.
can see why she did that at that point though, because even though, yeah, he saw her come into the house, maybe she's thinking if she turns the lights out, she can hide, which she hides in a very stupid location because it's not
Is that
anywhere. Oh,
hiding?
it
No.
wasn't anywhere away from the damn door. So
No, it wasn't. But no, like I get it, but also like I said, if someone already walked, like they saw you go in the house, they know that you're in there. So so she goes to call the police, but the phone line is dead. Classic movie trope, right? She sees a curtain fluttering in the corner. Now she's by the couch. Um, and she knows that Michael's presence is imminent, right? She sinks down to the floor and grabs a knitting needle out of her bag just as Michael rises from behind the couch. So he also did not do a good job of
no,
hiding. He's
not
just
at
like
all.
behind the couch. Um, he takes a swipe at her and misses, but she gets him in the neck with her knitting needle. He rips it out, but falls to the floor. So Lori grabs his knife and looks at his lifeless body on the floor. She relaxes a bit and then throws the knife on the ground and stays sitting on the couch. Would not be me.
Which that's funny because Jamie Lee Curtis said the most asked question she ever gets about this movie is why did you throw the knife away? Like, why did you drop the knife? Why didn't you keep it?
Right. Well, and I imagine her answer was because it was in the script.
I didn't see what her answer was, but that's just like her most asked question. Like people are like, why would you drop the knife? The very rubber knife, because that knife didn't have any weight to it.
No.
It hit the floor with a kerplunk,
Yeah,
but like a
that was very
rubber duck kerplunk.
that was a Spirit Halloween knife
It was.
before Spirit Halloween. So Loomis is walking the streets. The sheriff pulls up on him, and Loomis says Michael's in the area. Now he sends the sheriff to look for him as he continues to look himself. Like something about, like, I'll look in the back yard, you look in the front
He
yard. Like,
tells him to look in the back, and he's going to look in the front.
yeah, I forgot about that part. So,
Yeah,
Lori now at Tommy's house, remember, she has made her way up the stairs and calls to Tommy and Lindsay. They come out and give her a hug. She says they're going to take a walk, and the kids are like, I'm scared. Was it the boogeyman? Like, what happened? Lori tells them there's nothing to be scared of because she killed him. As she says this, Michael reaches the top of the stairs. Tommy says, you can't kill the boogeyman, and he doesn't know how right he is.
hmm,
They notice Michael and scream and run back into, I thought it was the bedroom, but then I'm thinking it was the bathroom.
I think it's a bedroom with a bathroom because
Okay.
she pushes the door open and she says, "Go into the bathroom and lock it."
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
yeah,
they're
but
in the same
sh
kind of room, but she's in the
yeah,
bedroom.
yeah,
So what she does, Lori goes to like the balcony and she opens the doors to make it look as if she fled, right, to the outside. But she goes and hides in the closet. And this is one of the most famous scenes from this movie. Lori is hunched on the floor in the closet. Michael tries to open the door that I think she has looped some string around, like nothing to really
yeah,
hold it forever, just something little. And she tries to stay quiet, but she is absolutely terrified and he's wildly jiggling the door. So that stops for just a second and he starts breaking out the slats of the door. She grabs a hanger, like that's not really going to do much, but that's what she has to work with. She does get him in the eye and he drops his knife, which Lori also then stabs him with, I think in the chest this time. It appears to
yeah,
have been the chest. He does fall to the ground. And Lori gets up and she looks out, seeing he's still on the floor. She lets herself out of the closet and slowly moves past him. So she limps away and has Tommy unlock the door. And she gives the kids instructions to go to a neighbor's house and call the police. Lori sits on the floor as they exit, and Michael behind her does his famous Michael sit up, also a la Undertaker
yes,
from WWF and E, but F back in the day, right?
yes,
Um, the kids run out of the house screaming, and Loomis is like, ah, this is the place. This must be the place.
right,
Right. So inside, Lori and Michael both rise from the floor at the same time, but again, her back is to him, so she doesn't know that he's conscious, alive.
right,
Um, he grabs her around the throat and they struggle. Lori here does manage to get Michael's mask off, and we see for just a moment his face before he puts the mask back on. This is the first time in the whole movie that we see his adult face, and I have to say, it is not like a great face. It's not a super attractive face. But I guess it doesn't need to be. But we prefer the mask, I think. Like, I don't want to speak for you, but I,
I
pre I
mean, yeah,
he has nice hair. He's like beautiful dark brown hair.
I prefer older Michael's face over younger Michael's face.
I get that.
And I prefer the mask on. And I prefer the tattered, worn, burnt mask over the new William
Oh, the
Shatner
weathered
mask.
masks are the best. I just posted
Yeah.
a meme. By the way, guys, if you don't follow the horror ghouls on Instagram, you're missing out. Um, it was the weathered Scream mask and the Michael Myers mask, and it was like just
Oh
talking about how
yeah.
beautiful they look, having been through what they've been through. And they do, they look really good,
Yeah.
right? So I'm with you. I agree. I agree. Um, so Lori is on the floor and Loomis starts firing at Michael. So Loomis, again, he has appeared and he is just like, I'm gonna handle this, I'm gonna take care of it. Michael, taking the gun power, goes backwards through the balcony doors and over the balcony. Yes, it's very slow. He was very slow. And he falls 2 stories and lands on his back on the ground. Lori says to Loomis, it was the boogeyman. And he's basically like, yeah, it was. Like, which is not really reassuring or something you want to hear in that moment. Like, also, it's just a strange man in a trench coat who has this tiny snub nose like pistol
Right. And you
who's like,
don't know
yes.
him. And you're just like, where did you come from, first of all? How did
Right.
you know
Like,
to come in here? And why did you like what? I would
right.
have so many questions.
Yeah. But Lori was like freaking out. She's like in shock and stuff. So Loomis goes out on the balcony to look at Michael on the ground, but he is gone. And the iconic Halloween title song starts to play again as Lori breaks into tears. We do hear, as the movie wraps up, Michael's heavy mask breathing that just gets louder and louder and louder as we get shots of different places, first in the house, but then the exterior, so of Tommy's house, and then we end on the Myers abandoned house. So leaving us to believe that Michael is still around and we might be seeing or hearing from him again.
For years and years and years and
And
years to
years
come.
and so many years. And that, my friends, is the end of the very first Halloween movie.
Hey,
Finn. Yes. So, I mean, you know what the thing is too, because I know I know we just took like a weird segue into like you're like, I like the old Michael Myers better and the mask.
yeah.
I like when Michael Myers is a little more beefy.
Yeah.
He's skinny in this movie. He's like a little, and he's also supposed to be in his 20s, you know?
23. Yep.
Right. So he bulks up a little.
Well,
Um,
almost everybody in this movie was 20, around 26. Like
really?
even on the cast and crew,
Well,
everybody. Well, Jamie Lee Curtis, this is her first movie, and she was 19.
oh,
So yeah. So she's probably one of the youngest on set, but most people were like not older than 30.
wow.
So
So
yeah.
Tommy and Lindsay were 26 as well.
Well, we don't
Just
count
kidding.
them.
I'm just
I forgot. Let
kidding.
me tell you something. I forgot all about them. But
Just kidding. Um, yeah, no, but it's interesting because it's like I like when he's a little beefed up, but that comes with age. Sometimes your metabolism slows down. We know that happens. But yeah, this really was a classic movie, and this was one of the ones that, like I said, even the music is just like creepy.
yeah,
Um, and it's one of the things as I've watched the installments over the years, um, I don't think I started actually seeing these in the movie theater until the latest trilogy came out, so probably like 2018.
yeah,
Because a lot more, I think the last one before that was like in the early 2000s,
I
pretty
think so.
sure.
Yeah.
So I just started seeing them in the theater, but anytime that music would hit in the opening credits, it would just make me smile because they tried to keep it similar. Like they would have like the jack-o'-lantern, like the same kind of credits. And
It's always a vibe.
it is a vibe. It is a vibe. So yeah, tell us. I think you said this was the first time you ever saw this movie in its entirety. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, because I'm somebody I struggle with watching movies. Not that I have any type of like a reason to not watch movies, but I'm just somebody who I just can't. Um, and then I can't rewatch them after I watch them. It's hard. But yeah, this was my first time seeing it in entirety. I think it was but it was good though. I liked it in its entirety. I was a huge Michael Myers fan. Until I got to know Jason. And then I love Jason.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, I've always seen like little clips and stuff. And I think like the first full movies I started seeing were much later on,
Yeah.
for Halloween, including like Rob Zombie stuff and whatever.
Totally
But
different take.
yes,
Totally different take.
yeah. And so yeah, I really did like it. It was interesting because, I'm always looking at the trivia and the facts and stuff. You talked earlier about Laurie and how her and Annie had a conversation about boys, and she mentions a guy or whatever, and the whole thing is Laurie really isn't interested. And so there was a whole debate about Laurie winning because she was like a virgin. And then even John Carpenter said that Laurie won and she beat she beat Michael because she was sexually repressed and she was killing him with phallic items.
What?
And yeah, I was like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever heard. But like the whole thing was like what people were saying was the reason why in horror movies most of the time the people who are having the sex, the people who are doing all that, they're distracted, which is why they die. But someone like Laurie, who spends a lot of time by herself, she's not into all that stuff. She's more alert. And so people were saying it's not about her being a virgin. It was about her being more aware of what's going on, as
Interesting.
opposed to if you look at both Annie and Linda,
Hmm.
both of them were very, very boy crazy, like into like the sex and the drinking and just not paying attention to anything at all.
Right.
So I thought that that was a very interesting thing. I didn't agree with the phallic stuff,
No.
but
A knitting needle?
I mean, everything she stabbed him with was pointy and sharp and phallic like, but
Pointy and sharp?
I mean,
I like that we both turn our heads to the side in the same way. We're like,
but but yeah.
I don't
So
know.
I don't know. I like I said, I don't agree with that. I
I
mean,
do
but
like
he's
the
the
point
person who wrote
about,
it.
yeah, like the I don't know, like the not being distracted, like that makes more sense. But we do find often, um, because I mean, I know we got this in Friday the 13th, and we did get it in Texas Chainsaw as well. The final girl, like the final girl usually is like semi like an innocent person, even like Sydney and Scream, like we find, that reoccurring theme. So that's kind of just one of those horror movie tropes, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, it's
Uh,
rare that you get one of the sex crazed people making it to the end like
no,
that.
because that's in violation of the horror movie rules,
It
right?
is.
It's in violation of the rules. I will say, so this came out, so we did Texas Chainsaw like a few back, right? And that came
Mhm.
out in 1974, I think.
I think so, yeah.
74. Um, this came out in
Eight. 78.
1978. So we do see, because we talked about, you know, almost like Texas Chainsaw being almost like the granddaddy of slasher movies and stuff. We see that some things have been adjusted for this movie. Like they learned from like super excessive scenes and really annoying people that we can't get behind, such as Franklin and things like that. So I think that I imagine, because being a fan of horror movies like John Carpenter is and has always been, that he probably watched that and was like, here are some things we can improve upon.
Yeah.
So this is definitely tightened up quite a bit. And we did like this is another one of those earlier ones where we just continue to learn and grow from these movies, But I like this one. This is one of the ones I remember asking my dad to rent, like when I would like visit him and he would pass out on the couch and I'd be watching it by myself, like, so scary. Um, Michael's very scary because also he never speaks. Like Jason never speaks, and Jason's so I don't know. There's something more like
Jason is more spry to me. He moves faster. He
he does.
teleports.
What's
Jason has an air of supernatural stuff with him because he is dead to
yeah.
me. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
what's interesting, I think, if we're going to talk about like the differences between them is like so there's an element of supernatural to Michael Myers, but it almost doesn't feel like that. Like the only thing is that he just winds up surviving things and then we see him in another movie. But otherwise he just seems like a regular person,
Right.
right? He just
He
seems
is.
regular.
Yeah.
Um, but also he doesn't move with like a underlying
Purpose.
bruteness or rage almost like Jason has. Like Jason
Right.
is very, even like when he walks, he's very determined. And Michael's kind of just like vibing. Like he's still motivated, but it's not the same like drive. There doesn't seem to be like an underlying like fire to him
No,
until he's
because
actually doing like things in the moment,
yeah.
you know? But that's an interesting difference between like it's a little difference, but it does set them apart.
Well, I do think that the difference is one, as we know, Michael is just soulless.
Yes.
He's just killing to be killing. But I think that Jason not only is killing for his own, death, but the death of his mother, who,
Oh yeah.
was his, I was gonna say bread and butter, but we know who it was. So he has a rage that you can tell in his step, in his
Yes.
walk, in how he also pops back up, you know.
He does.
Um,
He does.
Whereas Michael, it almost seems like he's like, oh, I should get up now. All right, now I'm up. Now I'm going to stand up and I'm going to calmly walk behind my victim and slice their throats, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely much more of that. I do think it's funny when he just sits up like he's just like boop.
And then he like looks around. He's like, okay, well, I'm still here.
You know, it's funny. I'm reminded of at my job when we used to work in the office, a lot of people used to take naps in their cars at lunch. I feel like you already know where this is going and like whatever, but someone I used to work with said one time, I think he forgot to set his phone alarm or something. And he said he was startled when he woke up and he sat straight up like Michael Myers because he was like, oh my God, like, am I late back to, but just like, no, just boop, sat right up. I do like that. I actually saw yesterday a reel where someone's little kid dressed up like Michael Myers at like I don't know, like one of those corn mazes or whatever. There are lots of bales of hay. And the kid, their parent was videoing them. The kid fell on the ground and slipped and just laid there for a minute and then sat straight up like Michael Myers. And the kid was like
Love it.
probably 7 or 8. And I was like, yes, I love that he stayed in character. Commit to the
Yes.
bit.
Yes, yes,
Gotta
yes,
commit to the
yes.
bit. Um, but yeah, I like this. So I don't know. I mean, we probably don't have this offhand. I didn't look it up either. I love him as Loomis. Like we got some good Loomises, Donald Pleasance, right? But was he Loomis several times?
He
I
was
don't
in a few
remember.
different
I
ones.
thought he was, right?
Yes, but he was not the first choice. But um he was cast.
He
But he
was
was he
cast.
he was in um a few different
Yeah.
installations of the movie.
I thought he was good. Even in the later ones, like the last like trilogy we got, we do typically get a solid Loomis, and they have the same vibe
Oh
to
yeah.
them, which I appreciate as well. They don't try to like reinvent the wheel too much.
Which is funny because Donald Pleasance actually kind of took this role and made it his own. Like at first they wanted the character of Loomis to have like a family and a wife. And he said, I don't think that this person should have any type of backstory. They shouldn't have any type of family or anything. They should solely be like almost like Michael is their obsession, Michael is their life. And so that's why you don't know anything about Loomis at
I love
all.
that. I actually
Yeah.
love that. That was very smart on his behalf to like say that. Even I know with directors, it's probably hard because it's like some of them just like, here's what you do your job. And then to be like, hey, listen, because you also probably feel weird about bringing that up. Like, I don't actually agree with that choice because it's like no one cares what you're getting paid to do this.
Right.
But I'm happy that he said that because I think it makes a lot of sense
Oh
that
yeah.
it's like his obsession is just like he didn't have time for those other things because all of his time was used for this person. Um yeah. No,
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Um
Yeah.
I like to start over at the beginning because I feel like the last trilogy, and not to get too much into it, I feel like so many of us were so disappointed um by what we got. It started good with Halloween 2018, but it just kind of got worse with each movie. Um
I mean,
so
Halloween Kills is my favorite. So I feel like that one was good.
that was one that you and I actually disagreed on very much
Yeah.
because I felt like it was a filler movie. There were
Yeah,
big
it
pieces of
was.
it that I liked, but it felt like filler to me, which was
Yeah.
this thing that bummed me out. Um, and then the last one, like God, if you want to hear us talk about that, please go back to Episode one,
Yes.
but I thought that was the hottest hot garbage. Um, yeah. So, but like I said, it's refreshing to go back and kind of revisit more of like the highlights because there were a lot of movies. Like the first one was good, but there were other ones that came after that were also good.
Yeah.
Um, but and there were ones that deviate though. Like sometimes Jamie Lee is like not in them at all, and sometimes like
Right.
she is his sister, and sometimes she's not his sister. And once Josh Hartnett was in one, and it just,
It was very hard because you had to figure out like where the lore was, what was canon, what wasn't, and
Right,
then, then it was like, okay, well, all of these movies in between are not canon, and now we're just coming back to like this movie, Halloween, all the
right,
way later 2018 is now canon. So
right.
everything else that happened didn't matter. Like when, what were they in space or some shit? I can't remember. Everybody goes to space in my head.
Anytime they go to space, I'm out. Anything that's in space, no, I just can't. No, no. Like,
But yeah, but like you said, it's refreshing to go back to the first one. Even like John Carpenter said, it was because you said earlier, you said that like Loomis was being very dramatic when he was like he was a soulless person and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But John Carpenter actually went to like an insane asylum and met somebody like that, and he based this character off of that person. And he said when he saw them, they seemed soulless, and it was so scary to him that he just had to write this story.
I have so many questions when you said that because I love that. I love when they go to learn about something deeper than just like writing a movie and they really want to
Right.
understand it. I love that. But it's like, how did you pick this person? How were you approved to speak to them? What happened when you interact? Like, I want a whole like a video diary of that whole interaction because
Yeah.
I'm also very like I think I've said before super interested in psychology. I always have been. So for me, someone like that is like, I want to know everything. Like, tell me literally everything. But that's
Yeah.
very interesting. That's an interesting fact I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know how much he got out of that person because like he said, that person scared him to his core. Because
that's
they
that's
had he
great.
said they had like blank eyes and like their stare was just like crazy and
Mm.
you know, so
But that's what I mean. Like, how do you pick like I'm like, I saw this person murdered his sister. I'm gonna go talk to them. And like then all the levels of approvals you have to go through to get that visit and like then you're like, hey buddy, and they're just staring at you and it's like okay well the weather is nice today like what do you just what do you do
well, I don't know if the person killed their sister or anything like that,
no I know I'm just like
But
making it up like how did you wind up
but
picking this
yeah,
particular person or he just went there like I said I have so many questions like he
it's
just went there and was like give me whoever doesn't get a visitor on visitor day like what
as
you
far as
know
I understand, he was just there walking through and saw this person. It wasn't like he like
oh
met them, but they were striking to him because of how they were just staring and just looking. And like you said, he never saw anyone look like that. He had never seen anybody's eyes be so vacant before.
right
And
wow
so, yeah, so I don't know, but I wonder if he would go back, if he went back later on and says, I need to study you further. Like, how do you sit up at night in the bed? Like,
can you show me
yeah,
when you sit up when you wake up what does it look like
right.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating to me. I've always been one of those people that I'm like, I would love to interview a serial killer. Now, we're not romanticizing serial killers. That's not what we do, but just to learn about like how their brains work and like what happened. So it's the same thing with like criminally insane, violent people. Like what is going on in your head and like what happened to you and how did you become this way? Um, so it's very interesting. That's all very interesting. And it's
Yeah.
interesting, that in this movie too, like we're talking about the shape. Like
Mhm.
Michael Myers is the shape because he is a person-ish, but he's like a soul. He's just like a changeable, weird, blobby, evil soul person. Yeah, that was good. I did a lot of adjectives in there. I hope that my old English teachers are proud. But no, I think that's interesting too. And I know how into this character like he was and so many people are and just um how evil can live in someone for so long. Like how many installments did we actually get of this movie? Like 20? Like
Yeah, too
there's
many.
so many. There's so
Too
many. They
many.
said he's really gone this time though, going back to Halloween
Oh yeah.
Ends.
Yeah, he has to really be gone. I mean, he was shredded. He was shredded.
Does
So
he? Does he really have to be gone? Um, we're gonna see because they always find some way to like, you know.
I hope that was the end because that was trash. I don't want any more. I'd rather re go back to all these and relive them and
Yeah, I would
stuff at this point.
totally be fine with them actually not doing it because at this point I'm going just out of a sense of like morbid curiosity and obligation when they released them in the theater,
Yeah,
where I'm like, this is probably gonna be bad, but I'm gonna go
yeah.
and I'm gonna eat a lot of popcorn. And that's, you know, that's the part. So
So
yeah. So I think is it time to rate? Are we gonna do that?
yeah, we can rate. It's cool.
Was there something else you were gonna say?
I can say it when I'm reading. It's cool.
Okay.
It'll work.
All right, all right. Also, I feel like there was just a spider on my leg. So if I start freaking out, there was a spider on my leg, just so everyone knows. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's fine. I can go first. So,
Okay.
um, this being the second original Granddaddy movie that we've seen, Halloween is also lauded for inspiring like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street because they both came after this as well.
Hmm.
Um, and it's so interesting because this is a slasher, but there was no, like almost no blood, which people loved. Five people got killed, but they weren't really killed. Like,
Right.
and it's so interesting. But I have to say, as opposed to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I didn't really love, this movie, I hated all of the people's dying. I hated how they acted it. I absolutely like I wanted to throw all types of tomatoes, like boo, boo, tomato, tomato. I hated that. But what I do like about this movie is the story. And I do like the characters. I like the way Loomis is a character that is just like he's over the top in general to me.
Yeah,
Just because like nobody's shrink is going this far and above. You know what I'm saying? Like to do the things that he was doing.
that's a good point.
Nobody carrying a gun around, just lurking in the shadows, lurking in the bushes, you know. Um, but I think like everybody did a good job. And for this to be um Jamie Lee Curtis's first movie, and she was worried. She said like she got done this movie and thought that she bombed. And when she
Oh
got
my
the call
gosh.
from John Carpenter, like thinking he was going to be like, you were a piece of shit, I'll never work with you again, he let her know like, hey, like you did a really good job and people love your character. Because again, she wasn't the first choice. I
Hmm.
forget who they said the first choice was. It was like somebody's daughter from something, I can't remember, but either way. So I mean, all that being said, I like this. I think this was a solid entry for like this whole franchise,
Yeah,
honestly. And I like that even though if this movie was just a standalone, they were able to morph so much out of it. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Because like I said earlier, at this point in the movie, in the series, you have no idea that Laurie is his sister. She
right,
has no idea. Nobody has any idea. So for them to be able to spin that in a way that made sense later on,
right.
I'm like, oh, that was brilliant. So with that being said, with everything else being said, I'm giving this um I'm giving this a 7. I'm giving it a 7. And I mean, like I said, I always say above a 5 is good, people. Okay, above a 5 is good. And I think giving it a 7, I mean, it's fair. It's for its time. I think it
That's
was
fair.
very well done. It did take the fails of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and tweak them some,
Yeah,
which obviously you see it get even better with Friday the 13th and much better with A Nightmare on Elm Street. So, I honestly just I think if this was the one where they called this one the granddaddy, I would respect it. I don't respect it for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially since and I was telling Megan earlier, the director, Toby, hold on, I have his name written down because I don't want to not say his name. Toby Hooper.
calling him out.
Toby Hooper
You're fired.
was like we all know John Carpenter did The Thing, and Toby Hooper was actually, supposed to do it first. And the production company was like, we don't like what you're doing. Like, this is just no thank you. And so John Carpenter got it after that. And The Thing is actually one of John Carpenter's like most celebrated movies. Can
Yeah.
you imagine if Toby Trash Texas Chainsaw Massacre made The Thing? It would be awful. There would be Franklins all over that movie.
Oh
So,
gosh. Hey, it's Franklin. Yeah,
right.
no. Yeah.
Literally come into your house.
That's very
Oh
funny.
my God.
Breaking into your house.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, oh God, I definitely get that. I'm laughing because of Franklin, because there was another point I wanted to make. Oh, no, I get it. And Texas Chainsaw, the OG, it wasn't the best, but it's just like, it's hard for me to say it's just like trash because it gave us Leatherface. Like Leatherface was born unto us because of that. So it's like
Well,
I love it for that. Um
I mean,
and
remember I said Leatherface is dope. I'd give
I
Leatherface an
know.
A. That
Yeah,
movie
yeah,
is an
yeah.
F.
No, I know, I get it. But it's just like without it, like, and I do love his performance in that. So it's just like, I love him so much. He was so good. Um but yeah, no, I mean it's not a good movie. We can agree on that. But this one, it really did, and just a few years later too, just like so many like strides and leaps and bounds to improve it. And even like we said, from just the box office numbers, from a $325,000 budget, they made this. And it's like it's such a classic. Like everyone knows this movie, you
Yeah.
know. Um and I really like it. With that being said, because it's still like there were things to perfect and stuff, I would probably wind up giving it, I'm gonna say an 8. Because again, like if we're talking about like granddaddy status, like we wouldn't have so many other things without it. Um, our Michael Myers that we embrace and then we grow with him through the years as things change and improve. It's funny when you mention Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm thinking like, yeah, it got better, but the effects in that movie are so crazy, the first one, because
Yeah.
they did so many practical effects and they're just so silly. Like there was that scene with Freddie in the alley where his arms are really long and you can literally see the strings that like hold his
Yeah.
arms up and like the blood spurts.
There's so
Where it's
many
like
hokey
they're
things
just
in
like
that movie.
psh, psh, psh. Oh my God. But I love it. Like that's what I love. But yes, all those things came to us because of these movies. So it's like, I respect it for that. I think John Carpenter smashed it out of the park with like the scoring and like we're saying he wrote the screenplay, he directed the movie and did all the music too. Like that's
Yeah.
nuts.
He hired his orchestra friends. He just like called some people up that were in the orchestra, which if you look at the end of the credits, the orchestra is credited there. I just forget the name of it. But yeah, he called them up.
Electric Light Orchestra. That's not right. I know it's
No.
not. I
Because when you said
know.
that, I was like, it begins with a P. But like, yeah, he just called up some friends, was like, hey, I got a score that I need to like do for a movie. And they're like, cool, what do you need? And that was that. So yeah, he's a
This
he's a
really
badass with this.
He's a badass. This movie is a complete package, you know, even though there are things that could have been improved or whatever. Like I really did like the no, the Bob kill. That was a kill I liked.
That's
When
the
he
best
was
kill in this movie.
It's the
That is
best one.
by far the best kill in this movie. Every female that died, I
They
tomato, tomato,
they
tomato, tomato,
were
tomato.
yeah, they were overacting it certainly. But maybe because they were young too. Maybe it was their first job too, and that's very apparent and whatever. But it's good. Like I said, there's not anything about it that's like glaringly terrible. Like the whole movie, I mean, there are a few things that are like, but whole package. So I'm gonna stick with my 8 for this. But still strong scores from us for this movie, I
Yeah,
would say. Strong
yeah.
scores.
And funny, this movie was shot in springtime, so it wasn't even shot in fall. But fun
Really?
fact,
Mm.
John Carpenter called Robert Englund and was like, I need you to come on this set so that he could dump dead leaves all over to make it look like fall. So Robert Englund was on this set doing like side work.
So wait.
Yeah.
So So was Robert England a landscaper before? Like, what was his job that he got called up to like do that?
I
Like,
don't know. That was just one of the facts I found. It
he
just
was just like
said,
an out of work actor that he was like, "Hey, you doing anything? You want to come
right.
get paid to dump some leaves on the
Yeah,
freaking ground?"
they had like a mixture of like leaves that were painted, fake leaves, and then Robert England with his dead leaves, like just all over the place.
Maybe he had
And
a giant tree in his backyard that he just had like mad dead leaves. That he was like, "Well, I can
maybe
bring them over if you want." Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it was springtime, so and it was they shot this in California, so springtime in California that they're
Right.
shooting a fall movie where so.
Wow,
But
that's really interesting though. That's so interesting. I didn't, who knew Robert England on the
right.
set?
But I was like, he was just out here dumping dead leaves. That's interesting. And this is prior to him being in Nightmare on Elm Street. So, I
Yeah.
mean, so it's clear, he had a connection in the industry if he was out there dumping
That's so
leaves.
interesting. I would love to like I've heard from multiple people, including yourself, that Robert England is wildly chatty
Oh
with
yeah,
people.
ridiculously so.
Which I have yet to meet him, but it's like I would love to just sit and be like, I heard this about Leo. Is that true? And like, how did that come about? And what were you doing at the time? And like, because he's such an icon now,
Yeah.
like in the horror community, and it's just like. I love that he knows that and he still does so much fan service for us because as much as I'm sure he loves it because he's so chatty, like we love that. We love that like sense of community. He's just and he's so precious. He's just like
Yes.
adorable. You just want to like hug him. I wish he was my grandpa. Like
If I had known the leave thing, I would
yeah,
have definitely asked that. Like, I'm notorious for not wanting to talk to celebrities. I've said that a few
right.
times, but that is so interesting, and it would give me
Yeah,
something that's obscure to talk about. So
right.
I'd be like, "Hey, I heard that you were dumping dead leaves on the set of Halloween.
Is
What was
that
that about?"
true?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
like
so I would love that because I could see him actually answering that. And the thing about him too, if you guys didn't know, he's really, really good with kids. Like kids, like if a kid is scared because he doesn't get in full makeup anymore, he only has the hand. And so like if kids
God,
see
I
the
love
hand
that.
and they get scared, he like will talk to them and calm them down and stuff like that. He's like really, really, really dope like that.
That's cute too, because like I think sometimes people do that and they still play it up and stay in character. Like, what do you mean? And like say things that are still kind of like spooky, but he seems like a sweet guy. He's
Yeah.
precious. I just want him to be around forever and ever. Um, we were actually supposed to meet him. We were on his line. It was like the end of the day, and they were like,
No.
he may take one more group. And we sat and we waited, and then they were like, no, he's taking too long. Like, we're not
And
gonna
that's
make it.
and I found out because he talks way too much. Like literally when I went to see him, the person in front of us had a kid and he did the whole thing like he was calming the kid down and stuff. But he talked to their parent for like a cool like 7, 8 minutes or something. And the line was like way out and around the corner. And we kept wondering like why is this taking so long? And then you see why. Because he's having full-blown conversations and it's not necessarily about movies. He's having like genuine conversations.
Oh, no, I really
So
like that. I like that
yeah,
so much. That's like, because it's weird. Like, I don't know what to say to people because, like, I want to be friendly with them, but I don't know what to say. So if he's like, hey, blah, 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 I'd be like, oh, this is putting me like more at ease because I don't know what the hell to talk about. Because obviously, like their body of work and whatever, but it feels like
right.
they're hearing all the time, like, oh my God, I'm such a fan of your work. Thank you. Like, and you don't want to just be saying the same
No.
shit over and over. So it's like, that's when I kind of get a little awkward about it. Or I'm like, hi there.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
So,
let me just like, stand in the background. You can sign the paper for me. Thanks. Let me take one of those like quick ass pictures with you where we just stand there and be like, and then keep it moving. So,
yeah,
which is my
like,
favorite.
right, just a picture, keep it moving. Bye. Nice to meet you or something. Yeah. All right. So yeah, no, I think we pretty much covered everything. Do you have anything else? Any final thoughts on the matter?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm giving this the granddaddy title. This
Nope.
this
This one.
this movie gets the granddaddy title. I will say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre gets like the spice that goes into the pot, but like they're the ones who like okay we put a little spice in here so we're opening up the genre, we're starting it off. Okay, I'll give
So
you
do you
that.
want to do like a great uncle? Like, is that
I don't want to put him in the lineage at all. I don't want Toby anywhere near the lineage. That's why I say
okay?
he's in the pot that the grandmother, whoever that is, has put in the pot next to the granddaddy. And so the granddaddy is inhaled that spice and said, "All right, now I'm good. I got the juice," and took it and ran with it.
You just made
So
me think of that corn song. Remember? It's got the juice.
yes.
When I tried it with butter, everything changed. It's fine. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, then you're gonna think I'm insane. Yeah, no, I get that. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. All right, no, that's fair. I mean, I personally don't have anything else to add, so I think we can take it home.
All
Um,
right.
but yeah, that was, solid. We needed Halloween to get to where we are today.
We did.
That's my last statement on the matter.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up another eerie journey with the Horror Ghouls podcast. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the nightmare that is Michael Myers. And if the shape still haunts you, or you want to have your own chilling conversation or theories, or any other horror movies you want us to explore, please reach out to us on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram at The Horror Ghouls. And please make sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We drop things maybe around once a month, maybe more. We never really know. But trust me, you do not want to miss what's lurking around the corner. So until next time, stay spooky, keep the shadows close, and remember, evil never truly dies, especially on Halloween night.
That's right. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.